little bit about Kate. She's a best-selling author of Money, a Love Story. She's an international speaker and a creative entrepreneur. And what she's committed to is supporting people to create freedom and abundance through doing less so they can have more of what they want in their life. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to get into having more by doing less. And with that, Kate's work has been featured by The Today Show, Yahoo Finance, Women's Health, Glamour, The Huffington Post, and of course here at Wanderlust. And so with that, let's give a big round of applause for Kate Northrup.
Yay! That's a big step. Hi. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on in out of the sunshine so we can talk about doing less so we can go back outside and do less in the sunshine and have more. So a couple years ago, I was at a 2-year-old's birthday party chatting with one of my girlfriends from high school, and she had just gotten married, and I was so excited for her, and I was like, oh, how was the wedding? And I wanted to hear all about it, and she said, I don't remember any of it. It went by so fast. And I was engaged at that time and planning a wedding, and I was so afraid that I'm gone. Oh, I'm here. Great. So I was so afraid that, like so many women I had talked to, that I was going to have this really big day and miss it because it went by so fast. And I was determined to not miss it because it was like a lot of money we were putting into this. It was a lot of time. It was a lot of energy. All the people we loved were flying in from around the world. And so I went about this. I was in anxiety about it at first, like, oh my gosh, like time is passing too quickly and I'm going to miss it. And now I have a daughter and she's 20 months old. And sometimes I feel the same way. It's like sometimes she wakes up in the morning and I look at her and I'm like, oh my God, you're older than yesterday. And I can see her having grown up overnight. And so I went about several practices to actually slow down time and have this experience of doing less, yet having more around my wedding, around motherhood, and also in my business. So I want to share those things with you because I've really been getting into time bending lately and how we can speed up time and slow down time at our will. Anyone interested in learning how to do that? Okay, cool. Because there are these moments like weddings, like a beautiful yoga festival when you've taken away from your life or, taken time away from your life, or just these moments that we do want to relish in and we want to slow it down. And then there are times when like your kid is having a blowout and you're at the grocery store and there's poop and there's screaming and like you have to pee and you really wish time would just hurry up and you could move that one right through. And so that is really the key to doing less and having more, is changing our relationship to now it is. Okay, so I'll just keep talking. So I am somebody who, I had my first day planner when I was 14 years old. And I got so excited about time management and scheduling things. Anybody else have a cupboard full of different time management systems that they have tried and used in the planners? And they all promise that, like, if you just do this system and if you just learn to manage time, that suddenly you'll have more of it. But it doesn't actually work. If it did, all the planners would, we would have stuck with one, and there would be these magical people who know how to schedule themselves who don't, who wouldn't have any time. But it doesn't work that way. Instead, so in 1915, Albert Einstein came up with the theory of relativity. And I am not a physicist, but in my research, what I came to understand about the theory of relativity is time actually is relative. So your experience of time from a physics perspective, scientifically proven, is how much mass that object has, and basically the relationship between the speed of time and the speed of that other object being us, of course. And so our perception of time moving actually changes the way time moves, literally. And it's not just this airy-fairy concept. Like, for example, there is a difference between, let's say, the first 5 minutes. Do you want me to do the handheld? Yeah, Great. Yeah, because this is annoying to everybody. Okay, great. I'm just going to keep this on, even though that's bizarre, because I don't want to stop. So we'll just turn that one off, and I'll be double mic. So there's a difference between the 5 minutes that you spent waiting in line at Starbucks this morning and the first 5 minutes that you held your child for the first time, or the first 5 minutes that you spent with the person you were going to marry, or the 5 minutes that perhaps you watched the sunrise this morning. There's a difference in the way time passes, and that difference has to do with our energy and our perception of that moment and our thoughts in that moment and our idea of time. So there are two different types of time, and this was from the ancient Greeks. They talked about chronos, which is the time that we're super familiar with. It's like, well, if you want to see Kate Northrup speak at 2, you just like show up here in this room at 2, and we all are agreeing that time just passes this way. Anybody see Wonder Woman? The movie? No. Wait, seriously? Are you kidding? Only 2 people. Okay. When you leave here, you must go see Wonder Woman. It's like an unbelievable movie, especially if you're a feminist in any way. If you are pro-woman, you must see Wonder Woman. It will change cellularly your experience of what is possible when the feminine leads. Anywho, I'm totally shocked. Okay, so you got to go see Wonder Woman, and there's this moment in the movie when the lead guy, is talking about time, and she doesn't understand because she's lived on this other alternate universe, this other alternate feminine universe, where they don't do, there's just, it isn't, like you're just experiencing life. There's not, and then the hours are going by, and as each one goes by, you're losing them, and you're just running out of time. And how many conversations do we have every day about this feeling of like, oh, there's just not enough time, or I wish I had more hours in the day, or I just, I'm so busy, I'm just running out of time. That is chronos time, linear time, that like 5 minutes is just 5 minutes. But we all know that there's this whole other experience of time because you have had the experience of 5 minutes feeling like an eternity and 5 minutes feeling like the fastest thing ever. And it is based on what you were doing during those 5 minutes, what your mindset was, and who you were doing it with, right? It's your energy. And so that kind of time, the kind of time that says that basically one period of 5 minutes can be weighted differently in terms of your experience of it. It can have more impact on you. That's called kairos. And so kairos is time relativity. So what I want to teach you about today is a little bit of how to play with kairos so that in your life you can become a time bender and you can actually become the source of time. So when we become the source of time, one of the most important things is to, number one, change our languaging around time. So in those months leading up to my wedding, I really decided, I just made a decision to stop worrying about missing it, because I knew for sure if I spent all the months leading up to my wedding being freaked out that I was going to miss it and it was going to slip through my fingers, that I would definitely not enjoy that experience. And so number one, and listen, I'm totally preaching to the choir here. You're at a yoga festival. But we need to all agree to stop the glorification of busy and stop the glorification of running out of time. We still operate under this belief that someone's going to throw us a parade, or that at the end of life, somehow we're going to get a medal for having done it better because we did more things and because we blocked our time more. We didn't have any downtime and therefore we're doing it better. And I know we know that's not true, but so many of us still operate as though that's true. I had somebody comment on an Instagram thing a little while ago that I had posted regarding time and time relativity, and she began to list all the things like a celebration of, well, I'm doing this thing, and I'm doing that thing, and I have to do this thing, and then I've got the kids, and then I've got the laundry, and then I'm doing these 5 business projects, and this committee, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and my life is really full, and da-da-da-da. And I was just I wanted to reach through my phone and be like, do you know that you're actually in charge of that? You don't have to do all these things. Your time is actually yours. So when we begin to change our conversation and just decide that when you meet up with your girlfriends, you don't have to be the one that comes late and is frantically running in and oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm late, I'm crazy busy, things at work or this, and I'm doing this, and da-da-da. There is this element that we really get off on all the things that we're doing, because culturally we have all bought into this false belief that we are more valuable the more we do. That somehow our productivity equals our value. And it's just not true. We are We are just here to, I don't know why we're here. I mean, I'm definitely not going to tell you that. but we are here to enjoy ourselves and actually be here. And the busier we are and the more we're trying to cram in, the more we miss. The more we miss of our actual lives. So number one is really to change the conversation around time. And then what we did for around my wedding, which I'm so grateful to my sister, she's really great at really like creating kairos, really creating that like, this is a moment I want to remember kind of thing, because we can do this conscientiously. And so for my bachelorette weekend, it was not like the Vegas thing. I'm so just not into that. We rented this converted barn in Connecticut on a free-range cattle ranch. And a bunch of my girlfriends and I came together and we just like did yoga during the weekend, and my sister organized all of these rituals, which at first I was like, this is so annoying, you're so weird. And it ended up being amazing, because what it did is it created this moment where we all agreed on what was the most important thing. And we will get 80% of the results in our life, including the element of satisfaction. Like 80% of our fulfillment in life will come from about 20% of the elements of our life. And also 80% of your results at work come from 20% of your activities. 80% of your headaches at work come from 20% of your customers. You know, if you run a business, that's for sure. And then 80% of your revenue in a business will come from 20% of the actual activities. So what we all agreed on is that, like, for me, what was really important was bringing the women together that I loved, eating great food, being in nature, and moving. And so it wasn't like I didn't need to do the games, and we didn't really drink, and that wasn't part of it. And so we did these rituals where we actually slowed down time, because we took a moment to acknowledge the transition in a lifespan. Our culture doesn't have these rites of passage so much. You know, we kind of have like getting your driver's license and then getting married, and then graduations are sort of them. But we had taken, instead of allowing the wedding itself to be the moment when I realized, oh shit, I'm not a single woman anymore, like now I'm in this whole other archetype of being married, we actually slowed it down to do some ritual around that. It was really, really beautiful. And so that's one of the things, is to change your conversation with time, and then to decide on what are those 20% of things in your life that matter the most, that are going to give you 80% of the satisfaction. And I would invite you actually just right now, like if you have a piece of paper, or just think about them, because you probably just came from yoga class, to think, like, what are some of those things? If anyone wants to shout some of them out, what are those 20% that are going to give you 80% of the satisfaction? Hanging out with your kids? Spending time with your kids, totally. Yeah. Any others? Yoga. Yeah. Self-care. Sleeping. Oh my God, thank you for saying sleeping. Yes, sleeping is my #1 priority, because everything else sucks if you're tired. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Okay, great. So the other thing is to identify the energy leaks in your life. So did anybody just go to the Kundalini class that happened with the beautiful Kia? Yeah, it was so great. I loved the way she talked about energy, and it was so in line with learning how to do less, because really doing less to have more is about learning to become masters and mistresses of our own energy, because our perception of time is based on not how we manage our time, but how we manage our energy. And so the whole time management industry is really just like having us try to manage the wrong resource, because you can't actually manage time. Like, it's this ephemeral thing, and human beings just made it up. And when you go see Wonder Woman, you'll have this moment where you'll understand what I'm talking about. And so I like to just talk about these 6 areas of life. And I'd like to, as I go through them, just jot them down or try to remember. You can put them in the notes in your phone, and I won't think you're texting. But if you are, that's fine too. So there are 6 areas, and I want you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how energizing the area is for you. Like, how much energy does this give you? So a 1 would be, this area of my life feels like I need to fall flat on the floor and go to sleep immediately. Or a 10 would be, I'm totally ready to take on the world. I can do anything right now. So first area of your life would be your relationships. So, friendships, spouses, the people at work. So your relationships, relating to other people. On a scale of 1 to 10, where does that one fit? 1 to 10, 5 would be average, kind of vaguely energizing. The next one would be your health. So how energizing is your health on a scale of 1 to 10? You don't have to think about it too much. It's just kind of like, just go with the first one that comes to you. And then next up would be your career, or your business, your career, your business, whatever you're kind of doing for your vocation, scale of 1 to 10. And then we have our spirituality. So how's your relationship with something bigger than you? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being I have zero relationship with anything larger than what's right here in front of me. 10 being I'm talking to God right now. So that would be the range there, okay? And then we have money. Money, scale of 1 to 10. Oh my God, my relationship with money is totally draining me. It's the biggest source of stress in my life. Or 10, I have zero stress around money. So that pretty much covers all of them. And then maybe family. It's a little gobbledygook with the family relationships. You can glom them all together or not. This is up to you. But the idea here then is to look at, okay, which one of these areas has the lowest rating? Because that's the area of your life that's draining the most energy, where you are spinning your wheels the most. So here's an example. Let's say I'm incredibly stressed out about money because I'm not opening my financial mail and I have no idea what I spend, and I'm just swiping my credit card willy-nilly and not paying any attention to it. That used to be me, by the way. So prior to this work that I was doing, I did a lot of work around specifically finances, and I wrote a book called Money, A Love Story, which I do have here. And so if money for you was the biggest drain, I would say 9 times out of 10 when I work on this with audiences, money is the biggest energy drain that people have. So if that is you, I would love for you to come up and chat with me afterwards and grab a copy of the book if that resonates. So when we look at these areas, there's going to be one that's bringing down the average. So you can't just like have this really major energy leak because you hate your job and expect it to not affect all of the areas of your life, right? But then I get the question a lot, well, what if all the areas of my life have a score of 5 or below? Like, what if every area of my life is massively draining? Well, the good news is any amount of energy leak plugging that you do will affect and help every area of your life. So let's say you have a situation at work with a coworker who's manipulative behind the scenes and screwing with communication in your company, and that person ends up like going to find a different job. That energy plug will actually heighten the score of every other area of your life. And so what I want you to do is, if you went through this in your head, what area was the lowest one? And then what's the thing that you can think of that would help you plug that energy leak? So who could you ask for help? What could you stop doing? What could you stop doing is such an important question to ask yourself on a daily basis. Like every morning, what is on my list that just doesn't need to be done? And every time I write a to-do list, I go through it and I look at it and I ask, what on this list just doesn't need to be done at all? Because we do so many things that just never needed to get done. Like, for example, I have a very dear friend. I love her so much. And she is a massive overdoer. And she was throwing a baby shower for another girlfriend of ours. And she has 2 tiny children under the age of 2.5. She runs a full-time business, and she's the primary breadwinner for her family. And her husband has been working incredibly long hours and is barely home. So she also decided to throw the baby shower, which was beautiful. And she decided to have a color scheme for it and redo the throw pillows in her living room and also floral arrangements to fit with the scheme. Like she was telling me all the things, and I was like, oh my God, you're making your life so hard. So that's an extreme example. And the pillows looked beautiful, and it was all awesome, but I guarantee you the party would have been just as meaningful without the different throw pillows. I think probably one person noticed. And it does the things that don't matter. So ask yourself every time you're doing your to-do list, does this even need to get done? And if it doesn't, just cross it off. That is the fastest way to create freedom in your life. If it does need to be done, the next question is, does it need to be done by me? Does it need to be done by me? That's a really important question. And sometimes it doesn't need to be done by you or any other human being. For example, I right now have a current need to find a nanny 1 day a week for my daughter. And yes, I could go ask everyone I know. I could go do all the postings. I could go to carrotgot.com and do all the things. But instead, I have put that for the summer on the universe's to-do list. Because I know that when I put something very specific out there that I'm like, I'm in need of an amazing babysitter for Thursdays, in case anyone knows anyone in Maine, I'm just putting this out there, for my daughter, it will happen. We get so caught up in our egos thinking we are the only ones who's responsible for things to happen in our lives, but there's this whole web working behind the scenes of, I don't know who these people are. They're just like the angels, the spirits, the universe, whatever, life, whatever you want to call it. These people are, we should probably call them people, but these forces, these energies are here to help us. So when you do your to-do list, make your to-do list that's your to-do list, and then make your to-do list for the universe or life or whatever, whatever you want to call it. And that can be a really helpful thing. So does it need to be done? Does it need to be done by me? And if it does need to be done by a human being, but it doesn't need to be me, who else could do this? Could it be my spouse? Could I ask for help from the neighbor? Learning to be okay with asking for help is so critical. And I think the biggest reason that we're afraid to ask for help, A, is because it makes us feel vulnerable and scared because they could say no, and then we're also admitting we can't do everything. So there's that. And then I also think it's really tied into the thing we talked about before, which is that our self-worth is so intertwined with what we do, with our productivity. And we think that if we don't cram in more during the day, that we are worthless. And therefore, if we ask for help, that takes our worth down a couple notches. So it's really important to just look at what is your relationship with asking for help. And I want to offer up that when we do ask for help, it's actually incredibly empowering to the people around us. With my daughter is a great example. She's 20 months old. She can barely talk. And, I ask her to do things regularly. Like if there's a Kleenex, I'll say, Penelope, can you go put this in the trash? And she walks over and she loves to do it. And she's so proud of herself. And it's really creating a moment where, yes, how hard would it be for me to get off the floor and put it in the trash can? I totally have the energy to do that. But I'm sharing the opportunity for empowerment with my toddler because she wants to know that she can do things too. And there are people in our life who we totally disempower and cut out of an opportunity for them to shine because we are too busy trying to prove something by doing all the things. So it's really important to look at those energy leaks, look at which one's draining the most, and then look at, does it need to be done? Does it need to be done by me? And if so, if it does need to be done by you, well, then that's a whole other thing, right? And what I recommend is to get that list of things that need to be done by you to, over time, this is a journey, this is not going to be today, but over time to narrow those things down to the 20% of things that get you the biggest results. And if you don't know what the 20% is that gets you the 80% of the results, my recommendation is to write out for whatever category of your life you're talking about. So let's just talk about career. In your career, what have been your biggest wins? So your biggest moments of biggest achievement, biggest wins, moments when you felt the best about your career. And then, so that would be one list. And then the other list would be writing down the tasks that you do on a daily basis at work. This is very annoying. I'm going to just let that dangle down the back. So what are the tasks that you do on a daily basis? And then put the lists next to each other and draw a line or somehow indicate from the list of the big wins, which task was that connected to? So here's an example. Big win. Speaking gig. Okay, great. Awesome. Here at Wanderlust. Connected to, well, this one actually is connected to this networking thing and meeting this woman for lunch a while ago, whatever. Great. So for me, actually socializing and making connections, while it may look like I'm just having lunch with girlfriends, is an incredibly high leverage activity. And it's not super strategic, but those sorts of things, actually you might be like, well, is that really income generating? You were eating a lobster roll and drinking iced tea. But actually, if you connect the dots, we all have these big wins in our life. And then what are the tasks? And then the tasks that are on the list of your tasks that you do that aren't connected to a big win, just kind of try to stop doing them. I mean, it's really straightforward. And then, of course, we need to learn to sit with the white space that comes from doing less. And that, I think, is far more difficult And that is the reason most of us are so numbed out by being busy, is because that feeling that you have when you have nothing on the calendar and nothing in particular you're supposed to do can be terrifying. I used to find it totally terrifying, so I just scheduled myself within an inch of my life, and then I had a kid, and then now my free time is like so few and far between. Every second I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So those are some of the practices that I really recommend. And you actually can, when you change your mind and when you decide to begin to see yourself as the source of time, based on your thoughts, based on your energy, based on who you're spending time with, and based on those energy leak assessment, specifically in the relationship aspect, by the way, if there's a person that's weighing down the average of your 1 to 10 scale in that relationship category, just make a note of that. And I just want to give you permission to minimize the time spent with that person. And sometimes it's a family member, and it's okay. Because most people who are sitting in this room are probably not that much like their family. Like, we are the outliers here. And probably your family might think you're a little weird. I remember going, my family actually is pretty much on board with this, but sometimes even then, like some of my aunts and uncles, they just think I am completely out to lunch. And that's okay. And we just choose, one of the ways that I plug up my energy in that area is I choose which topics to discuss with certain people. And I don't try to get them to be interested in the moon cycles and, like, tracking your cyclical nature for peak productivity. They think I'm a wingnut. So we just don't talk about that. We talk about, like, gardening, or we don't talk about gardening. I know nothing about gardening, but we talk about, like, food or movies or, whatever. So to end with, I want to mention that I read a really interesting article that a woman wrote a book about the 5 biggest regrets of the dying. She was a hospice nurse, and she spent years and years and years working with people in the last 12 weeks of their life. And she said they gained tremendous, tremendous clarity during that time about their life. And the 2 biggest regrets of the dying were, number 1, I wish I hadn't worked so much. And number 2, I wish I had lived my own life rather than according to someone else's expectations. And these are the reasons that we do so many of the things that we do, that we stay on the hamster wheel of busy, because we are trying to make our father proud. We are trying to get our mother to finally accept us. We are trying to make somebody else to play into the game of the system that we never even signed up for, that we didn't even want to be a part of in the first place, but we just keep our life going for that. And I think it's so important, and may the wisdom of these people on their deathbeds not go to waste, for each of us to remember that they thought, I wish I hadn't worked so much, and I wish I had lived according to my own truth instead of somebody else's expectations. So may we work less and live according to our own truth, and we'll get to have more. Thank you.